Hi, this is Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, your host for the Voice of Leadership, the show for business executives and global corporations who appreciate a principled biblical lens on leadership, featuring the song Consuming Fire by gospel jazz saxophonist Ron McMillan. You are listening to our Resource Renewal Series featuring shows for times such as these. I'm so excited to be able to say to you out there in the audience that we are celebrating the silver anniversary, if you will. So those of you who understand numbers and marriage and so on, you know that 25 years, the silver anniversary, it takes a lot to get to that place. We are in an environment where many businesses go out of business within 5 years. So to last for 25 years is something I'm excited about, I'm happy about, and I want to share a couple thoughts with you about it. First of all, if you're celebrating a silver anniversary, you're celebrating radiance, brilliance, and harmony. That means we've had 25 years of being able to partner with our clients to help them shine and be brilliant and radiant in the world, doing what they do best. We have had 25 years of internal harmony within our own organization, recognizing the talent that we have and partnering also with our clients. That means you've got to have had some love, some understanding, and weathered many storms along the way. So when you've got 25 years under your belt, not a whole lot scares you because you've seen a lot along the way. So one of the things that I would say that I've learned is this: leadership matters. It really makes a difference. And we are really happy to say that we've come alongside many companies, many executive leaders, and helped them to be their best, to be long-lasting in their environments, and to have the courage and the wisdom, the hope and the faith to step out there and contribute their brilliance to the world. Because if you think about 25 years, the flower that's associated with that is the iris, and that stands for courage and wisdom, hope and faith. And secondarily is the bluebell, and bluebells stand for long-lasting and consistency. Over 25 years, I've seen a lot of changes. I can remember way back at the beginning, we very rarely saw any female executives. Most of our clients were men, and that's still true to some extent, but there are a lot more women leaders in places of leadership, significant leadership today than 25 years ago. Also, there's been tremendous change in terms of technology. And I've had to learn how to use some of that technology to show up on a podcast, to be on the computer. Because when I started my business, computers were not a big deal. Certainly there wasn't podcasting. It was a whole new world, which brings to the point this: change is inevitable. And if you're going to continue to be relevant in the world, you have to learn every day and continue to grow and continue to move. So I wanted to just give you an idea today, too, about who is it that we work with? How do we come alongside them? What do we do for the people who are our clients, who are our family and our community, people that we care about? And if I think about the spiritual word, if we will, for silver, those words would be purity and truth. And we like to bring sort of like that truth mindset to our clients. And a lot of what we do, and this relates to silver too, it's about restoring the equilibrium and restoring stability. So our clients are actually values-based companies and the executive leaders of those companies. And when I say values-based, I mean that that company is offering a product, they're offering a service that makes a difference in the world. Maybe it's a medical device. Maybe it's a new treatment. Perhaps it's something that's going to help someone who's disabled to be able to walk better. Whatever the product, whatever the service, is making a difference. They care about the difference that they're making, our clients. They want to be profitable. However, it does matter how they're profitable. In other words, it's not anything goes. There's a deep caring for the people in their organization as well as their clients that they serve. And so they have some bottom lines about how they're going to be profitable. So we also believe in working through our people, and our clients believe the same. In other words, you don't have an organization, you don't really have a company unless there are people there carrying out that mission every day. So again, being willing to learn and invest in themselves and their companies. That's who our clients are. They recognize they must invest in those people who are daily making a difference. Now, some of the challenges that they have when they come to us, I would describe as growing pains. And I say growing pains because many times people have outgrown their foundations, they have outgrown their infrastructure. And when you outgrow your foundation and infrastructure because you're moving and growing fast, you might have situations where your people are overworked. They're working long hours, nights, weekends, holidays. Families might be complaining. There may not even be enough time to think. So the groups and the teams are not even communicating with each other within a team or even across the boundaries of different teams. And because of that, we see unnecessary errors and mistakes, blame, finger pointing, people maybe not accepting responsibility or accountability. And in fact, there's often this negative, very mistake-focused culture, which leads to a lot of turnover. So those organizations start having some difficulty attracting and retaining top talent. And if it continues, they'll find that they start failing to delight their customers. They may be getting the job done in the basic sense, but maybe not going beyond the basics because they've stopped innovating and they're only in survival mode. So the executives at that time, they want to get out of this chaotic situation and they're not really sure what to do and what works. And very often they mistakenly think that something's wrong with their people and they start doing what I call beating the sheep. So when they come, they want to stop the chaos. They want to stop the bleeding. And so the benefit that we bring is that we bring clarity into that situation. Clarity about direction, clarity about next steps. And because there really is an order to doing what works well, doing what your next best step is for your business. So one of the things we do is we help our clients to identify what is that next best step. Sometimes at the top of the list is freeing up the executives, freeing them up from the daily, day-to-day operations, being mired in the weeds of the organization. And instead, we free them up so that they can then have a more strategic leadership role, see the business from the 50,000-foot level. And in order to do that, it means bringing in some high-level partners, people who can run the day-to-day operations in the business. So we help them select those people, integrate them into the organization, and develop that high-level talent as they come in. A lot of times it also means developing high-performance teams in the organizations, teams who learn to problem solve together. And when they're problem solving together, they're no longer pointing fingers. They're saying, okay, here's an issue. How can we bring our collective intelligence together to address and resolve that issue? So they co-create the next innovations. They solve problems together. Ultimately, the organization creates an intentional, positive, and feedback-rich culture. And that culture then restores hope, it restores faith, and a valuing of the employees in the business. So bottom line is we end up creating that double-sided coin that I've often talked about, which is one side is creating the best place to work. That's the environment where you can attract and retain more of the best people. And secondly, you're creating a competitive advantage, meaning that you're listening out there, paying attention to what your client or customer wants, and you're innovating at a level where you're able to provide that. It takes some effort to get to the silver state of the ornate, the glamorous, the graceful, and the sophisticated business. However, by working together, we actually do get there. So there are two verses I want to share with you in terms of the impact and what they mean to trans leadership. Trans leadership stands for leadership transformations. And it's sort of inspired by Romans, the 12th chapter, verse 2, where a portion of the verse says, "Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds." So a lot of our work starts with what is the mindset that exists now? And what may need to shift or change about that mindset to get to that place where it is seamless operations, people are actually innovating and creating together, and you're out of the chaos. Sometimes that requires a renewal of the mind. And then the next verse I would share with you is that there are words that make a difference in a business, what you are saying to your workforce on a daily basis, and words that we also share with our clients. So Proverbs 25:11 says, "A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver." There are a number of ways to understand this particular verse, and I'm just going to share one way of understanding it, and I'll say it again. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. Apples of gold, that's actually a term that's often used to refer to citrus fruit because you have an orange and it's got that golden kind of color and it's round like an apple. And if you think about citrus being poured, let's say, into a silver setting, the acid from the citrus fruit actually oxidizes the silver and it creates a substance that we call colloidal silver. And colloidal silver is a healing agent or a medicine. So, one of the things that we bring to our clients is the kind of healing that allows them to flourish and to grow and to become all that they were created to be. So, if you would like to shine brilliantly and to be radiant in this next season of your business life, if you want to restore harmony, stop the chaos, stop the bleeding, get aligned with high performance teams that are doing the work of your organization every day, then give me a call and I'd be happy to come alongside you so that you will be those apples of gold in settings of silver. This is the month of April. And guess what? That means it's Trans Leadership's birthday. The company this month is now 27 years old. I'm very excited about that. And I want to just share a few reflections with you have come to mind since we've been in business now for 27 years under the title of Trans Leadership Incorporated. I'll remind you that Trans Leadership stands for Leadership Transformations. And it really was birthed out of what I'm going to say a calling from God to me. Prior to being at Trans Leadership, I was with another organization, primarily doing executive leadership development training. And I felt a call to do more consulting where we could have more of a longer term impact that would really help people to change the trajectory of their organizations and to be more intentional about the leadership culture that we're creating and intentional about the succession plan and results that they were achieving. And that's why we really started this business. I will say this, when you are called, as I felt that I was called to move into this next chapter, everything that happens before that chapter is also important as the foundation. I learned so much from all of my other experiences with the leadership training company that I was part of, experiences active duty in the military, experiences in all my private practices, and all the many other jobs and so on along the way. Yet that was all part of a season of preparation. When it was time to go, And when it was time to move into this new season, just like with the eagles, I believe that God stirred up the comfortable nest, made the nest uncomfortable so that I would know now is the time. And he had given me an inclination beforehand, you're not going to be here very much longer, but I didn't know the timing. And then all of a sudden, the nest was stirred to say, this is it. He knew what would get me out of the comfort zone, what would get me out of the nest to really launch and start in the direction that he had me going. At the beginning of it, there was a period I went through of prayer and fasting to really hear from God about what He wanted me to do. And it was during that time that I got the Bible verse for the company, which is Romans 12:2, which essentially says, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And what I've learned is that this emphasis on mind and mindset is not only important because I'm a psychologist and obviously I focus on mind and mindset, is that we go in the directions where our minds are oriented. Just like we go in the direction where our eyes are oriented when we're driving down the street in the car. So if you're driving down the street in the car, if you look out in the distance in the direction where you want to go, you will find that you more naturally will drive properly towards that aim and objective. Well, the mind is very similar to that. Wherever your mind is oriented, wherever your mind is focused, that's where you'll head. So it's really important that we pay attention to the orientation of the mind. And for those of us who are believers, having the mind of Christ is really important because with the mind of Christ, we will be seeking those things that are above. We'll set our minds on the things that are above, recognizing that our lives are hidden in Christ, as we see in Colossians, the 3rd chapter. And we will also have the same mind in us that Jesus had in himself, where it was not about his personal reputation. He was here to do the will of the Father and to extend that. And we see that in Philippians 2, verses 5-11. Now, by contrast, sometimes we can be those people who are double-minded. And the book of James in the 1st chapter talks about that. If you are double-minded, the scripture says you're unstable in all of your ways. And imagine you'd be kind of like a push me, pull you. There may be one part of you that's oriented towards the agenda of God, that's oriented towards the positives and the direction where he's leading you. However, if you're doubting and you have another part of your mind wondering if God is really going to accomplish what he said, that's double-minded. And you really can't get to the mission, the purpose that he's given you when you go there with a double mind. So every day we must wake up and make sure that our minds are transformed, that they're in alignment with various things, in alignment with the gifts that God has given us, the strengths, the positives, the purpose, the mission, and calling. And you want to think about what those strengths are, what those gifts are, because it's on that foundation that he's going to build out the purpose and mission for your calling. And those strengths and those gifts come from God, because we do know that the Messiah of God is the foundation. He is the chief cornerstone, and there is no other foundation other than that. But we're building on that with the gifts that he's also given. So you want to keep your eye on the objective and know that you will get there. And anything that you need, you already have, or you will acquire it along the way, because God already knows what you need for the calling and for the mission that he's given you. Now, when we keep our minds on him, as the scripture also says, he will keep us in perfect peace, those of us whose minds are stayed on him. And while we are focused on the mission and we're seeing the gifts, we're seeing the strengths, God makes it his business to create those divine appointments, to send the right people, and to open the right doors. So as you are ministering to other people, they are also ministering to you, back to you, or God sends others to minister back to you. I was listening to Wintley Phipps, who's a wonderful singer. I was listening to him on YouTube the other night. As I was listening to him, he was singing the song about It Is Well With My Soul. And he was sharing a story about how this was the first song that he ever recorded. And one day he was on the airplane on Eastern Airlines, and the flight attendant looked kind of troubled. And it was in his spirit, what can I do? And he decided, he called the flight attendant over and he gave her a cassette tape of his first recording, It Is Well With My Soul. And she thanked him because she was troubled that day. Unbeknownst to him, 3 weeks later, the flight attendant is doing her job and is flying on a flight. And Cliff Barrows, who was with the Billy Graham's organization as a major singer there, was on the flight. And so she thanked Cliff Barrows for being on the flight and acknowledged him and said, do you know a young man named Wintley Phipps? He said, no, I've never heard of him. She said, well, then you need to listen to this cassette. And she gave the cassette to him. Obviously, Cliff Barrows went home, listened to it. Next thing you know, he called Wintley Phipps and had him be a soloist for the Billy Graham organization. So while you are out there doing your work, just like he was ministering to the flight attendant, God opened a door for him that ultimately ended up ministering back to him. So I want you to remember that in this year. And this year, I've named the year of abundance because John 10:10, Jesus says, I've come that they might have life and more abundantly. So we want to remember to walk by faith, not by what we see, but by the promises of God. And he's promised us the abundant life. He is the door opener. And he's asking us to also present our bodies as the living sacrifice that he can work through, because that is our reasonable service. So here are some questions I want you to think about for yourself as I'm celebrating the 27th year of TransLeadership and our birthday. So number one, what is God calling you to in this season? What are his purposes for you, your area of service? Who are you to serve? What is your mission? So that's number one. Number two, how will you keep your mind focused on the things above to which he has called you? What are the disciplines you will engage in daily to keep your mind focused? Thirdly, what's the inventory of your God-given gifts, strengths, and talents? Because he's going to use those in a profound and mighty way. You want to know what those gifts and talents are. 4, what promises is he bringing to mind for you in this season? And for me, one of those promises, as I said, is that we serve a God of abundance, and he's come that we might have life and more abundantly. Will you believe even when you don't see what the promise is? And then 5, how are you being a living sacrifice for him, his glory, his purposes? Make his glory, his purposes, your glory, your purpose, because you're glorifying him. That's the whole purpose we have in life, is to glorify him. So I want to close with Romans 12, and not just verse 2. I want to also include verse 1, which is not really given so much at the beginning of the business. However, I've come to see you need both of these together to have the most profound impact. So Romans 12, 1 and 2. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. So God bless you as you renew your mind today and every day. As we say, happy 27th birthday to TransLeadership. This is a season of celebration. I am celebrating the 28th birthday of my company, TransLeadership. This is also the time of spring. the time of new growth, new beginnings. And my own birthday was also in March. So at this season, there's so much to celebrate. There's so much to look forward to and to thank God for this new opportunity and this new season. So today, what I'd like to do is to share with you just 10 ideas, 10 strategies that I've learned from running my company and business for 28 years, perhaps a few things that I wish I had known when I started at the beginning, so that you can benefit from this, whether you're in a corporate setting or if you're in an entrepreneurial setting. When I started TransLeadership 28 years ago, I was very excited. I saw purpose, I saw calling, and I had a mission for what I really wanted to do and the people who I wanted to resource in the workplace. I really did see the value of applying psychology and behaviorally based principles to business and also to leadership. And as I've shared before, I first saw the connection, first learned of the value when I was an active duty Army officer. And in the Army, we had to consult with commanders, consult with leaders, and identify ways that the environment, the culture could better support the soldiers and better support the mission. And so it was then that I said, oh, psychology really does have something to offer in the leadership space. Now, in my case, even though I had many jobs that were W-2 jobs, and therefore that meant a steady paycheck coming in, so I knew what that was like. Prior to starting my current company, I did run a successful and thriving entrepreneurial business, which was my private practice. And that private practice was in more than one state, more than one location, and that didn't mean that I had a W-2 job, because I really didn't have a W-2 job. I had to bring in the money and the resources every week, every month. And what was different about that business in comparison to what I have now, that was what you call a B2C business, business to customer or consumer. So individual clients, they paid me directly for the services that I provided. When I started TransLeadership, I knew that was a different model. I was going for a B2B business, business to business. Individuals would no longer pay me, but companies, corporations would pay me for the services that I offered to individuals, groups, teams, or even the whole corporation, depending on what was the nature of the work that I would do for those organizations. When I first started out, I would say that my expertise was as a subject matter expert. I knew about the principles of psychology. I knew about human behavior and human motivation. I even knew a lot about leadership at the point when I started my company. So that is expertise in a particular subject matter. And I knew that that was the subject matter I wanted to use in order to resource the companies who would be my clients. So, number one, understand how your subject matter expertise affects the core business of your customers and of your clients. It's not enough just to have the subject matter expertise. You have to be able to translate your expertise into offerings and into results that will elevate the core business and the core purpose and mission of those people who will be your clients. And you'll have to show it to them and demonstrate it, because it may not be intuitively obvious. Most business people, unless they're thinking about their employee assistance program, are not thinking how a psychologist could potentially help with leadership or help to build a culture that is thriving. So that's what you have to educate the customer about, is how that can occur. So number one, you have to go beyond your subject matter expertise and figure out how to apply it to whatever it is your customer ultimately wants to do. Number two, I would say, to identify your unique marketplace value, your distinctives, the way that you benefit your client that may be different from other people who are in the same space that you are in. There will be lots of people who do what you do. However, not necessarily those who do it how you do it. So, one of the things that's important is to figure out what are your uniquenesses, the unique lenses that you are bringing to your expertise. So, in my case, I'm bringing a leadership lens, I'm bringing a biblically based spiritual lens, I'm also bringing a psychological lens and perspective, and a lens with more than 30 years of experience in the marketplace in all of the sectors. I've worked in the for profit sector for the longest period of time and with the most clients. I've also worked in the not for profit sector with major foundations, Christian ministries, churches, and other entities. And I have also worked with the US government and also multiple branches of the US military. So that experience and expertise, and me being an Army officer myself, I am bringing some lenses that not everyone else is bringing to the marketplace. And I leverage the insights, the learning, and the experience for the benefit of people who may not be in those sectors at all. And yet the lessons apply across multiple sectors. So you have to know what is your unique, distinctive, your marketplace value in the workplace, and then how to leverage that both for your success and primarily for your client's success. Because if you're not benefiting your client, who wants to pay you for whatever value you're bringing? So you want to be valuable, bring something that your clients both want and also need. This means, number 3, that you want to know your target market and be able to speak to their pain points as well as their aspirations. One of the things that I know is that the people who are my most ideal clients, these are people who know that they are called to be marketplace ministry leaders, executives at high levels in large global corporations. They understand and they appreciate the fact that they can improve the culture for the benefit of the corporation's mission, and they can develop people both for the individual's benefit as well as the company's benefit in providing their core services or products. And they do this because of their Christian values and not in spite of them. So they may not be able to preach at work. They may not be able to proselytize at work or even to say much. However, every day they are a shining light in that workplace that speaks volumes to the people who work there. And some will ask you, what is it that makes you different? What is it that makes you unique? And in some cases, you will have an opportunity to go even further than what you normally might do. So, in this respect, I would say I have clients who are Christians, I have clients who are not. For those who are Christians, I can go to some deeper levels with them. Yeah, we're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about what they can do in their corporation to make a difference. We're going to talk about their culture. We're going to talk about the people in their organization and the positioning of their products and services. And at the same time, we also are going to talk about what does God say about what they're facing right now. And sometimes it's a word of encouragement that the leaders I'm working with need, because they'll see the roadblocks. They see the barriers to being able to show up in the fullness of all that they are. And yet when we talk about it, I show them how God is there, prepared to strengthen and to resource them for whatever the mission is. And we also talk about the supernatural, spiritual, not only gifts that they have, but the ways that God resources them for what they have to do. And then they realize it's not as hard as it might look, because if God is for you, who can be against you? He will take you through the difficult times. He'll take you through the wilderness journeys that you might have to go through. So I think that that's an important point. I would also say that earlier in my career, had I discovered earlier both my points of uniqueness and distinction, and maybe understood even better the target markets that I was going after at earlier stages of my business, then I probably would also do less work that fell into the subcontracting bucket. When you are a subcontractor, you don't have the direct relationship with the client. And whenever their business downturns, whenever there are challenges, you're the first to go very often. Whereas when you have the direct relationship with the client, you are the one who helps and leads that client through the dark times, through the difficult times. You're the difference maker. And they trust you because their direct relationship is with you. So doing both of those would have helped me to do less subcontracting work, which is not as lucrative, even though you're doing the same work. Because in my case, it was my intellectual property, and it was mostly what I was bringing to the table to do the subcontracted work. So if I could do it under someone else's umbrella, I could also do it under my own. So if you're an entrepreneur out there, think about that. If you're working inside of a corporation, inside of an entity, it's fine that you are bringing your intellectual property and using the intellectual property of the organization that's already there to make a difference for your customers, because perhaps the corporation's reach is beyond what you would want to create yourself in an entrepreneurial business. And that's fine. That's okay. So feel free to lend your skills and abilities to the corporation, and you will also benefit as well. Number 4, I would say I would invest even more time early on learning about sales and marketing. At this point, not only am I learning about the core craft of my subject matter expertise, I make sure that I'm learning about business, and particularly sales and marketing. No matter what business you're in, the core of it is sales and marketing. So if you're in a larger corporation, you may not be the one who's doing the front end marketing, the front end sales. However, when you meet with a customer, and anytime you're meeting with a client or customer of your business, you want to understand how the offerings of your corporation will help the clients that are in your target market. And you have to be able to articulate that, to demonstrate that value, so that your customer and client wants to continue doing business with you and your corporation. If you are an entrepreneurial leader, then you may have a lot of front end marketing and or sales work that you do, even if you have a sales and marketing team. And so it's important that you understand what it means to be in front of your customer and to articulate how you are value added for them. What is the difference you're bringing? What's the difference you're going to make? So inside the corporation, understand the positioning that your sales and marketing professionals are putting in place to attract and retain the best customers for your business. Which brings me to number 5, which is to speak the language of your target market. You need to know where the people are who are in your target market, how you can find them. And in some businesses, that's online, in social media. Some people are looking for you through Google. They'll find your website, and that may be how they retain your services. In my industry, people are looking for me primarily through referrals, people they trust, people who they respect, who also know me. So it's important for me to be in the right networks, the right circles, where people who know me can be the trusted referral person to advise someone that they know. Say, oh, you're dealing with that issue. I know just the person who can help you. You need to call Dr. Karen. She's the one who can make a difference. And I recall many years ago, this happened with my company, where someone was referred to me by someone else, and they didn't want to come to me for whatever reason. And everywhere they went for what they were looking for, Everyone told them, you need to go talk to Dr. Karen. Until finally, one day I was in a hallway in a building doing something else not related to this entity, going up and down some stairs, ran into someone I knew who was walking with the person who had been referred to me multiple times. And that's how I met that individual. And we finally connected and finally did some business together. So, as my husband would often say, it's not even so much who you know, rather who knows you. And you want to be known by those who are in a position to say, you need to see so and so. I would also say in my business, although we have a strong online presence, and particularly in social media, the bulk of our clients, in addition to referral person to person, come from those times when I am in front of people who are my target market, and I have an opportunity to do professional speaking that addresses what they're trying to address in their business. So my best clients have come from direct referral or from speaking engagements. And I know that that's how I find them. So you have to know where your people are and how to find them. And if I think about social media channels, the one that's most relevant, since my target market are corporate executives and secular global companies, the majority of them will be on LinkedIn. That doesn't mean they're necessarily looking for me there. However, I can also be looking for them in the LinkedIn space. They're not typically looking for me on Instagram, even though I have a presence there. So again, you have to know where your people are located. Number 6, I would say you want to create repeatable systems for lead generation. In other words, for getting in front of those people who can benefit from your products and services. And when you're in front of them, you want to then inspire them to want to talk to you about how they can engage with you. So you don't want to be hit or miss. You want to have a repeatable system for making this take place. The rhythm of when you do public speaking, if that's important, the networking kinds of associations and events that you are part of, where you're going to meet either direct potential customers and clients or those who can refer you to the direct customers and clients. Likewise, you want to create, let's say, if your market's predominantly online, you may want to create some online offerings, some online experiences and events where you can meet people and where a certain percentage of those you meet will choose to work with you. So again, it depends on your target market, where they can be found and how they best prefer to procure products and services in the marketplace. And when you get in front of these prospects through whatever lead generation vehicle you're using, you want to give them a taste of what it is that you bring. And I have found that when I have that complimentary session with people and I'm able in a short period of time to help them think about something that they weren't thinking about, to give additional perspective and to move the needle in a significant way, that increases the likelihood that they will want to do additional work and more work to get more of that. Because my whole thing is really about accelerating and elevating their leadership impact. So they might get there, but if it took 2 years, well, the market may have moved already by the time they figure that out. So again, be thinking about what it is that you're bringing that may be faster, better, or somehow it's elevating the impact of the people that you are working with. So I would say if the people like the cool drink of water that you bring, then they will come back to get another cool glass of water. And that's a good thing. That's what you want. And so in my case, this is why speaking is so important, because they get a little taste in the speaking environment for sure. Number 7, I would say understand your numbers, understand your financials. This is the cost of doing business. You've got to understand and what it takes to be profitable. There's a formula for figuring out what you should charge for certain services. You don't want to be working for free. So you've got to know your numbers. You've got to know what's involved. If you have to hire other people to work with you, there's a cost associated with that. If you're in a corporation, the same thing is true. You still want to understand how the business operates. If you are just a cost center costing the business money, you are possibly vulnerable to being cut. However, even if you are a function that seems like it's ancillary, if you learn and understand what's important to your business and how your company adds value and makes money, you can, from whatever seat you sit in, also increase the likelihood that the company will be profitable because of what you focus on. So remember, no matter what chair you're in, if you understand the business, you can bring value that's also profitable. Very important to think about. Number 8, I would say to continue to learn and to grow. And every day, every year, I'm learning something new. I'm continuing to grow in my core expertise, leadership, psychology, and the business application of that. I'm going to take 30 credit hours every year in that space. I'm also taking continuing education, getting mentoring and coaching from people who know more about business than I do, so I can expand my horizons and get there faster. So don't be afraid to pay for classes, continuing education, to pay for consultants, to pay others who know more than you do or who have business knowledge that you don't have, so you can get there faster and more effectively as well. No one knows everything by themselves. Therefore, this is an important piece of the continuing education and learning and growing. I would also say, if you're in a corporate setting, a lot of your learning and growing is going to come from the specific jobs that you have. So make sure you have a well-rounded exposure in your business. So if you've been kind of just only on the finance side, get involved in something that's maybe a little more core to the business. Try a different role. Get deeper exposure so you're not limited to just your subject matter expertise silo. So, number 9, I would also say leverage and benefit from all of your past learning. There's not a day or week that goes by when I don't benefit from what I learned when I was in the military as an active duty officer, what I've learned from working with other corporations besides the ones that I'm working with now, what I've learned in the nonprofit sector or working for the government. All of this past learning benefits me today and continues to benefit my clients because of how I use that learning. Not only is your learning about what to do, it's also about what not to do. And one of the things I learned from a previous mentor, and I still apply this learning today, is to spend my time with the person who can say yes to an opportunity, the one who can write their name on the bottom line, the check, and say, I want that. This is a service I think will benefit my company and the people in my company. So often we are working with gatekeepers who can typically only say no. So if you're working with a gatekeeper and their role is to say no or just to find information out, but they really can't say yes to the opportunity, your only role with the gatekeeper is to get introduced to the true economic buyer. And that's where you want to have your conversation with those who are truly the buyers in the process. So that was the lesson I learned painfully of what not to do. And when I spent too much time with the wrong people, a lot of contracts never materialized because I wasn't in the right rooms talking to the right persons. So that's a powerful example of what not to do that still serves me to this day. Number 10, and this is huge, is you must continue to reinvent yourself. The marketplace is continually changing. And you have to change and adjust with the marketplace to become more nimble, more agile. And this is why the continuing education is so important, because what you need to learn for this marketplace may be different from what you learned 2 years ago. And in the post-pandemic environment that we're in now, business is very different from how it was before. And because that marketplace is changing so much, you want to know how it's changing. You want to anticipate in advance what your customers are going to need to be successful, and sometimes to figure that out even before they do. This way, you're getting them ready, ramped up, and prepared so that they're first to the market with what I call their creative advantage. If people don't figure out their distinctives, their value add, if they don't figure out how to educate their customers so that their customers understand that value add and how they are different from others, or if you're in the corporation, how your business and what you provide is different from what the others in the marketplace are providing. And if you don't have the value add that makes you distinctive, this keeps you competing as the low-cost player and provider. And most people don't want to be that because it's hard to be successful as the low-cost player and provider. So the more you understand your distinctives, the more you understand what's in the best interest of your customer and client, and you can articulate that, you can bring that value to your client, then what you are doing is bringing creative advantage to the marketplace, which first benefits your customer, benefits your client, and creates a good business for you too, whether you're in the corporation and engaging in contracts there, or if you're an entrepreneurial business leader. So this is what we are doing every year. This is what we're doing constantly in our business, is paying attention to these 10 variables that I just shared with you. And at the beginning of the year, I mentioned that we are in the middle of a rebrand that relates to marketplace challenge and change, and it's an opportunity. And you'll start to see the effects of that rebranding in the new website that we're developing, and also other messages that will be out in social media and other places. So stay tuned. So I'll just review quickly those 10 items. Number 1, leverage your subject matter expertise for your clients' business success, for your company's business success, and particularly the core business that your corporation is involved in. Number 2, identify your own uniqueness in the marketplace. If you're a corporation and a big company, understand your distinctives. Understand how they benefit your customers and clients. If you're a smaller entrepreneurial business, do the same. Number 3, speak the language of your target market. Know their pain points, understand their aspirations, and make sure that you speak into that and show how what you're offering will make a difference. Number 4, learn sales and marketing, whether you're in sales or marketing or not. Because even if there's a big sales team out there, a separate marketing entity in your corporation, you need to understand how those messages are being positioned and in front of the customers that your company serves, so that wherever you are, you're in alignment with that, or can bring new information that can inform it so it can be done even better. And 5, I would say, speak the language again of your target market. Know where they are, where they exist. Find them there. And when you find them, number 6, create some repeatable systems for the lead generation, whether it be public speaking, whether it be certain groups that you're affiliated with, associations, networking groups, whether it's your presence online, on social media, wherever it is, you want to have a repeatable system for getting in front of potential prospects and customers, and then giving them a taste or a sample of what it is that you bring to the marketplace, so that they then are inspired to drink more of the water that you bring. Number 7, understand your numbers, understand your financials, what makes your company profitable, what the cost is to actually do business in your space. You don't want to be working at a deficit or working for free. You want to benefit the customer and also be able to feed your own family. Number 8, continue to learn and grow. Take continuing education in your subject matter expertise and also in the business that you're in, whatever it is. And that includes the sales and marketing that I mentioned, and be willing to pay for that expertise. Leverage and benefit from all of your past learning. That's number 9, because you can still use a lot of that today. And number 10, continue to reinvent. As the world changes, you need to change and to be ready for the opportunity that comes with whatever the current change is. So as we close today, I'm going to close with a verse that comes from Deuteronomy, the 8th chapter, starting with verse 18. And it says, "And you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers as it is this day. Then it shall be, if you by any means forget the Lord your God and follow other gods and serve them and worship them, I testify against you this day that you shall surely perish. As the nations which the Lord destroys before you, so you shall perish, because you would not be obedient to the voice of the Lord your God." Now, this is God speaking to his people, the children of Israel, who he promised to bless if they were faithful to him. And God is still in the blessing business. He is still the one who gives us the power to get wealth. Does that mean that every person will be financially wealthy? No. However, you will be able to support your family. He will provide food, shelter, and clothing, just as he says in Matthew 6 and 30 to 33. He reminds us that as we focus on him and his purposes, that he will take care of the mundane things of food, shelter, and clothing. So we look back at Israel. We look back at God's chosen people, see how he took care of them, and we have confidence that he's doing the same today. So happy 28th birthday to TransLeadership. Happy spring and God's blessings on you, your life, and your business. Thank you for listening to The Voice of Leadership with me, Dr. Karen Wilson Starks. I am also your concierge executive leadership advisor for when you need to make tough business decisions, facilitate executive succession and transition, develop your executive team, lead change, create a positive and profitable culture, or leverage marketplace creative advantage. You can reach me at Dr. Karen, Karen, at transleadership.com. Also go to my website, transleadership.com, for more leadership resources and insights. I want to give special thanks to Ron McMillan, gospel jazz saxophonist and national Billboard recording artist, also known as Mr. Sirius XM Jazz Watercolors, for allowing us to use his gifted music on our show. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.